You've been invited to a house party. While you're there, you notice the male occupant of the house has been spending all of his time with a specific female. Throughout the course of the night, every time the female's cup is empty, the male ensures it is filled again. Toward the end of the night, the female, obviously drunk, is led upstairs by the male into his bedroom. First question: is a sexual assault imminent?
I would say that is the duty of the observer to assume that well, at this point, that yes, a sexual assault is
imminent. Okay. Would you intervene in the situation, and if so, how?
Yes, I would intervene, and at this point, I feel like the intervention would take place a lot sooner than having to bust in the door. So, if somebody's refilling this girl's drinks, that might be the first sign to interject in some sort of way, either with her or with him or with both of them, to subtly make them aware that you're aware of what's going on.
Okay. How could you intervene in the situation?
Well, like while the drinks are being refilled, before anybody's led upstairs, I think some sort of like the interjection, the conversation between her and him, either together or to somehow have them separated, would, like, the conversation itself would be seeking some clarity on the situation or the intentions of the male, and that the intervention might come off at first subtle, or like it's just friendly conversation, but I think the intervention would need to escalate the further that the male is trying to sideline my investigation. So if there's a sidelining that takes place, a direct question might need to come out, like, what's going on with this between you and this girl, and what are your intentions? Like, just a direct question.
Okay. Well, given the options, why do you choose to react the way you
do? Well, I think that a lot of the issues that have been coming up for me personally and some of the other folks have been this kind of struggle with inaction and like, what's my place in all of this really? This might be embarrassing. And I think that it would be much more empowering for the self and for other people to know that regardless of if nothing is happening at all, that you're taking the time and effort to show this amount of care towards somebody you might not even know, and that to make that the example that this is what is important, the safety of all the individuals, and any amount of inaction is as inappropriate as voting for the guy to proceed with his sexual assault. It would just not need to be a question anymore.
For sure. What parts of the questions or the hypothetical situations have been confounding? Have made it harder to answer?
Definitely whether or not I know the individuals and whether or not I know anything about their relationship, and their intentions at being at a party where there's going to be inebriating substances as well as sexually attractive people. You know, in essence, like, the house party itself is sort of a, to some people it might just be, hey, let's go hang out with some friends, but I know that the desire for human connection never really escapes my mind when I'm going to a social event if I'm not already experiencing some sort of human connection with another person. I'm going to be seeking that in one manner or the other. So it's perplexing in the way that, like, you can't really gauge with any certainty the motives of other individuals who are also perhaps seeking love and compassion, and they might just as very well be confusing the seeking of love and compassion with the seeking of lust or sex, whatever it might be.
All right. Was one of the specific compounding variables you brought up the relationship between the two individuals. In the end, does it matter? Does their relationship matter for how you should proceed?
No, and I think no because this is where the earlier intervention would resolve this, to where if I were to step in before anybody's led upstairs, that would sort of negate the problem within me of how well do these two even know each other, because that would establish that baseline, but it would also at the same time establish that a third party has been witnessing what's taking place and they're uncomfortable by it, regardless of what your relationship is. So if there's any information to alleviate my concern, I am assuming they're going to either provide it then or a further intervention would have to take place. But, I mean, there's still something very unsettling about even an established couple taking advantage of each other, because that still happens. It doesn't matter if you're in a relationship or not. You can still be coerced and sexually abused and assaulted. It's almost as if that's typically the home where it takes place, because I imagine the perpetrator would likely like to have a situation where he's already trusted, in which case he can perform his coercive actions in hopes that he can continue to perform those actions with a person that already trusts him, and that he wouldn't have to move on from girl to girl, So it's almost more likely, if they're in an established relationship, that coercion is possible. It just makes it harder for whoever's stepping in, if they care about looking stupid or perhaps like ruining the party for some people because they made an assumption that a sexual assault was going to happen. But if anybody's going to hold that against them, really, then it's better to not be invited to those type of parties in the future. So.
Sure. Okay. Did you notice any kind of differences in the trends of how the female-bodied individuals answered and how the male-bodied individuals answered?
Yeah, definitely seemed like the females, upon answering the questions, were ready for the questions before I even asked them. And they already had an answer, and their answer was very confident, and their answers were backed up with experiences that they themselves had been through, as well as experiences that they've witnessed. And it seems as though like they've kind of already gotten over the shock of the question a long time ago. Whereas the males, when we asked the questions, it was sort of like, oh my God, this is a whole situation. Are you sure you want me to get into this? And when it was made clear that, like, yes, this is what the substance of the interview is, they like, they really started to work out, the ethic of the situation, and were still like perplexed the whole way through the interview, even if they got to a point where they were like, yeah, this is wrong and this is what I would do. It seemed to be more of a harder issue to address for the males.
Okay. Then, as far as the project itself, not necessarily with the interviewing answers, but did you see any methodological flaws with how we constructed this?
Well, I'm sure we could improve somehow. I don't know. I mean, we could have possibly tailored specific questions to either male or female bodied individuals to get a stronger response. But I'm not entirely sure if everybody would be comfortable being pushed to the most emotional response that we could have gotten. Like ideally, that's kind of what I wanted, was to get this emotional raw response out of people that they might not typically feel comfortable giving because they don't typically think about it. Though what we ended up finding is that women are constantly thinking about it, and that men, though they might consider it, don't think about it as much, and it did invoke a more of a emotional response, but it wasn't an emotional response out of experience as much as like out of, wow, that experience would be messed up.
Sure.
So I mean, I guess I would have liked to have seen a more vigorous emotional response, but at the same time, that might not be what the interviewees would be expecting with us, walking into class and being like, hey, can I interview for a project for school? Surely we've caught some people off guard.
Okay, last question. Why did you feel compelled to do this particular project?
Well, after reading the article about the mother who interrogated her son about what he would do in this similar situation at a party, I kind of felt, I guess, that growing up, most of my friends, including myself, like our relationship with our parents was kind of based on this: I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, but if you ever screw up, you're going to be in big trouble. But there was never a conversation on like even though my mother had been through some considerable violence, I guess, she never sat me down and asked me about it, or even wanted to really talk about it as much as wanted to consider that a part of our past that hopefully will be over someday. So just having the conversation at all was super compelling to me. And just, mainly kind of just putting it out there that we want to have the conversation, and not just right now and not just for a project, but we're trying to have a conversation that's going to influence you and influence others when they find themselves in a similar situation. Ideally, the 10 interviews that took place, those 10 people, well, if they do find themselves in any situation where they have to question any of these themes, hopefully this is something that gets referred to and some sort of further action takes place.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or any other questions you'd like me to ask?